Psychedelics Today. This is Kyle. In this episode, I chat with Allison Pelissier from the Traveling Light Machine. That's their company. It's a Lucia Light number 3. It's a hypnagogic light machine. A little bit about Allison. She holds a master's in international education and development and a bachelor's in political economics. She also holds a 200-hour yoga training certification as well as a children's yoga certification. And she's also traveled across the world and has worked in many capacities as an academic teacher, a textbook author, and meditation yoga teacher, project manager, and a developer. And she is currently traveling around the U.S. with her partner and business partner, Zach, sharing this experience with the Lucia Light Machine. So how I came across this was actually kind of synchronistic. I was in Vermont helping facilitate a holotropic breathwork workshop weekend with the Gibsons up at Dream Shadow, and a fan of the show ended up coming to the retreat and didn't know that, but ironically they were also cousins of my roommate, and they were telling me that they were hosting some folks that had this light machine, and it was really intriguing because I remember at Psychedelic Science that there was this booth that had this light machine and everybody was talking about how trippy it was, and I didn't get to do it, but I think Joe ended up doing it and said he had a cool experience. So I got really curious and I was like, well, that's interesting. There was some folks out at Psychedelic Science doing that, and he told me that the same people were coming to his house. And so I felt like I couldn't pass up the offer, and went over to Grant's house after the workshop later in the week and met up with Allison, her partner Zach, and they gave me an experience with this hypnagogic light machine. It was really cool, and I got to sit down and talk with Allison afterwards about my experience and also to learn more about how this light machine works, how it was developed, and it's pretty basic in the sense that it's just I think it's a halogen light with some LED lights, and it flashes in intensity. You have eyes closed, and I had all sorts of beautiful colors and visualizations. It was a really neat experience, but we'll dive into the episode, and I hope you really enjoy it. I thought it was a pretty interesting experience. It's a little different, I guess, from our other content, but also really cool. And it was fun to, have an experience and sit down in person and to do some recording versus, being on Skype and on the computer. So let's see, some updates. We have the integration course that Joe and I are trying to retweak and relaunch in July. So stay tuned for some updates and info about signing up for that. Joe has some breathwork events coming up. He's got one in Lyons, Colorado, the Back to Balance, on June 23rd, and I believe that is a combination of all sorts of different practices, and he will be facilitating breathwork there. And he also has a workshop coming up on July 8th. You can check out more of his workshops and info and register at breckbreath.com. And if anybody is in the northern New Jersey area, I'm trying to just put on a little online meetup. So we got one scheduled for June 14th. It's a Wednesday, and I believe it starts at 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. just on Zoom, and just figure to get a conversation going. You can check that out on our Facebook group. There's a little event thing. You can sign up there. There's a little ticket link. We'll bring it to a Zoom registration. So that if anybody's in the area that wants to just get together and chat, that'd be awesome. And I think that's about it. I don't have any workshops coming up. I am going to be outside of Lowell this weekend for the BEN, the Boston Entheogenic Network. Going to do a little breathwork workshop with them. Other than that, in planning stages, so stay tuned. Hopefully we'll be doing some more stuff around the New Jersey area. And let's see. Yeah, so I hope you guys enjoy this episode. If you like it, or if you really like the podcast and want to support us, leaving a review on iTunes would be awesome, on Stitcher. And you can also leave a little review on Facebook. Leave us a comment there. If you have any questions, feel free to send some questions in at psychedelicstoday@gmail.com. We also created a Facebook group. You can check that out on our Facebook page. I think it's just called Psychedelics Today Group. Pretty simple. You can check that out. Just a new way to do a little bit of communication with folks, since, communicating on the Facebook page doesn't always work very well. So the group is helpful for that. And yeah, leave us a comment on, the website on this particular episode if you have any questions. And yeah, thanks so much for listening, and I hope you enjoy the show. Welcome to Psychedelics Today. This is Kyle. I'm on a Vermont tour right now. I just finished up doing some breath work down at the Gibsons, and I met this guy Grant, and ironically he listens to the show, and I used to be roommates with his cousin, so weird synchronicity there. And he invited Allison Pelissier from Lucia #3, correct? Mm-hmm. And I just had a great session with this light, and really want to just highlight some of the work that you guys are doing. And you're kind of on a little light tour, which is cool. I'm on a little breathwork tour right now. Yep. Can you give me a little background about what the light is and how you got started with this? Yeah,
definitely. Thanks for having me here. Yeah. This is fun. So the Lucia #3 is a hypnagogic light machine. It was developed in Austria by a neurologist and psychiatrist, and it was actually following kind of a near-death experience. So the psychiatrist/psychologist, he had a really incredible experience when he was young where he nearly died, and he went to the light, wow, which a lot of people talk about with near-death experiences. And it was really profound for him. It really changed his whole way of being and acting and feeling towards the world. Beforehand, he had felt really lost and he didn't have a place here. And afterwards, he realized that he was here to serve others. And he always kind of was looking for a way to replicate that experience without having people have to go through such intensity and trauma of nearly dying. So he was looking for different ways to work with it. So he actually started with hypnotherapy and just a solid light that he would bring closer to people's faces, and they would imagine of going into the light or things like that.
Interesting.
Yeah. And then he teamed up with his friend, neurologist, named Dirk Proeckl, who recommended maybe using some flickering light, so a type of brain entrainment that would go with it. And so they combined the solid and flickering light, which was the first time it had been done like that, and found amazing results. And they were actually surprised and amazed at the depth of experience that they were able to create with that. And that was birthed the Lucia #3. So it was Lucia originally, which means light in Italian, Lucia. And then it's the third version, because the first version they made in a espresso maker. They were just hooking up LEDs and halogen and trying to get it working there. And then they, the second one was kind of a prototype. And then the third one, they got a version that really felt like it, and it came to life. So.
And how old is this technology?
That was in 2009 when it
was this is pretty recent.
Officially released. Yeah. Wow. EngelbertWinkler, who's the psychiatrist, he did research for decades, and he interviewed all kinds of people with near-death experience, and he, has a lot of his practice as well as a psychologist, psychiatrist, and he works in law and rights for young children in Austria. So he has quite a variety of things going on, but wow. This is kind of his, big soul project that he has been really proud of and really invested in lots of different ways. Mm-hmm. And
how long have you been doing this work for?
So I first found out about the Lucia #3 in London. I was doing my master's, and a friend of mine invited me to an art gallery, and that was probably about 5 years ago now. And I went in and he was like, oh, you got to try this light thing, and didn't really say anything about it. And I was going through a pretty rough period of my life at that point. I was pretty depressed and had some kind of trauma coming up that was preventing me from sleeping. I was having nightmares and all kinds of stuff. And I wasn't really like myself. I felt like I was struggling to be present in my life, which was pretty unlike me because I'm a pretty like happy, easygoing person generally. So, they had me sit down and try this light, and I had such a powerful experience. I actually reconnected with my father who had passed away, and saw all these incredible things, and the visual experience just made me so joyful. So I went through a whole range of emotions, and I just felt like a different person when I came out of it. And I slept that night for the first time in like 8 months. I slept through the night with no nightmares, and I haven't actually had any of those nightmares ever since. And it was like one of those things where I was the kind of person, I was like, oh, if it was a healing thing, I would probably be like, oh, I'm fine. I got this. I don't need to be healed. Like there's nothing like wrong with me. I'm just like having a hard time, but I can get through this. I've gotten through a lot, and so it kind of snuck up on me like that. And I think that's one of the reasons it was so powerful. I had no expectations, and I just really let go in it and was really, amazed by the results. So that was, about 5 years ago at that point. There was only one Lucia, and actually it was in Vermont. But it was in this it was this guy who works with different lighting systems and stuff. So he wasn't actually, he had a full-time business, and he kind of had a Lucia, but he wasn't really bringing it around that much or anything like that. So, I was trying to find a way to get a hold of one, and I ended up buying his from him. And he let me do a payment plan, all this stuff, which was amazing because, it's definitely, not a cheap thing. It's an investment, energetic investment.
And did you drive up here to Vermont to pick that up?
No, he just mailed it to me. It was like a full like universe supporting trust moment where, I made this website. I was like so passionate. I was telling everyone I knew, like, you got to try this light thing. And they're like, what are you talking about? Like, it sounds like crazy. And I'm like, no, it's amazing. Like we need them here in the US. Like, and I was just so passionate about it. Wasn't giving up. And then, and then I ended up buying his from him. And then that was the birth of the traveling light machine project, which is what my partner Zach and I do. And we travel all over to people who are interested in the light. We kind of let the light guide us. We don't do any advertising or anything like that. So we just allow people to organically find it one way or another and reach out to us. And then we follow the interest, and we get to travel all over and share this amazing experience.
That's really awesome. And you said you do have a stationed light in Colorado. So
yeah, there is one in Boulder. It's a friend of ours, actually.
Oh, okay, cool.
Chuck, he runs a vibrational healing studio. So it's with vibrational boards that go at different frequencies and like massage tables and stuff. And he actually combines that with the Lucia for
awesome.
A really awesome experience.
That's really cool.
So,
and you said you have your master's. Is that in... Like, have you been on a healing path before you came across this light, or, what was your master's
not really.
in?
It's so interesting. It really kind of changed my trajectory. My master's is in international education and development.
Okay, so very different.
Yeah, so different. I mean, I feel like my whole life I really wanted to help people, but then I kind of realized how much ego was in that, in one way or another. And, even doing that program was enlightening in some ways, but also extremely frustrating in other ways, seeing like donor money and, what people's, desires are, and like how these huge nonprofits are just paying all their money to staff and to certain like bureaucratic things, and not actually like so little of it actually reaches the people who need it. And, they're kind of imposing programs that are culturally inappropriate and causing a lot more problems often, by like choosing one group to give money to and not another. And then suddenly you have like, a cultural dispute that was never even there before. So it's like how, so that was kind of my whole thing. Like I worked in a few different countries and realized that, it's more about holding space for someone to have their own experience who's ready for that, and to be there to like say support them, but not to try to do it for them or to tell them what's best for them, because everyone only knows what's best for themselves and they can only do it when they're ready for it. So so it was kind of a big shift working with the light. I was like, oh wow, this is awesome, like this is the next level, because you can be there with someone having this incredible experience and find joy of being able to be the person who's holding the space, but it's all them, and that's what the Lucia is. It's like a cosmic reflection, and you get to kind of go explore yourself, but it's a totally safe space. It's not like a psychedelic experience where you're in 12 hours deep and you just want it to stop and it won't stop. It's not.
You buy the ticket and take the ride. With psychedelics. Sometimes.
Exactly. And that's the thing. I mean, a lot of people have had negative experiences with psychedelics or are afraid of that potential of letting go and not losing control, which people who are into psychedelics are like, that's the magic, but it can be a scary thing for people who have never experienced that before. So I think the Lucia is an amazing experience because it's kind of somewhere in between. It's like an experience that's very psychedelic in a lot of ways, but also much more grounded and in some ways, and you're able to stop it at any time. So it's like a safe space, and it's not something you're ingesting. It's all you. So you can't say like, oh, that was awesome because I took mushrooms and those mushrooms are like amazing. It's like, no, you're amazing, and it's like the mushrooms bring that out in you, but like this is even more direct. Like you didn't take anything. Like this is all you. So
and that's why Joe and I really like breath work too. Totally. After holding space for people in breath work, they're like, wow, that was so awesome, thank you. And it's like, no, really thank yourself for showing up and doing the work, because we just provide a space to play music and providing a safe space for somebody to process whatever emotion comes up. And so, it's a really cool technique to have light or use the breath work for like an alternative for psychedelics.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And it's really interesting because so Joe and I were out at Psychedelic Science and we heard about this. You guys were out there as well. Yeah. And I was really curious, and I'm not too sure if Joe did it. And Joe's not here. We're recording in person, which is cool because usually we're on Skype with other folks. I can't remember if he actually did the light, but just walking around Psychedelic Science, people are just raving about it, talking about it. And I was like, wow, this is really, really interesting. Like, I want to do it. But, it just never happened. And it's just so synchronistic that I'm like helping lead breathwork in Vermont. And, this guy Grant's like, oh man, I'm having these people with Lucille Light come to my house. And I'm thinking, really? Like, he's like, yeah, I think they were at Psychedelic Science too. I'm like, how the hell did you get them to come to your house? Like, I don't know, it just didn't make any sense, but this is really cool. Yeah,
it's a small world after all. Yeah. No, it's definitely, it's really, that's what's kind of fun about what we're doing as well, is we can kind of flow to all different places. People are really interested in it, and there's nowhere around. And, there's about 45 Lucias in the US now. So there are places to go to. And, I think that, I guess I would say about half of those are personal use, but on our website we're starting to list like all the places where you can go for a session, and that's what I really recommend. Because a lot of people write to us and they're like, I want to buy one of these lights, and that's awesome, but it's a huge investment on a lot of levels, and it's also, like you said, like holding space is such an important thing, and as you don't want to just like, and the doctors who created this didn't want people to just buy this and do it themselves and not know how to integrate what happened, or have these like really deep experiences but not be energetically safe, or like it's too much, you can't stop it if you're just giving it to yourself. Like that's why we're here for each other, and human connection is one of the most powerful elements in the world. It's like technology is amazing and can really facilitate help facilitate amazing experiences, but at the end of the day it's you connecting with yourself or you connecting with someone else, and if you just like mail order some like light machine to your house, maybe you'll like use it a couple times, but like it's the same thing, it's like if you have no one to share that, experience with, it's a different thing. So we really encourage people to go, if you're interested in this type of experience, to go somewhere that has one and experience it with a facilitator. And, the Lucia is the original light machine. And the really most intense one, the deepest experiences, but also providing like from really gentle all the way to really extreme. And so that's what a facilitator is really there for. And we're definitely looking for people to help join this mission, because there's not really enough around, but really more for people to be interested in being facilitators rather than seeing this as just like
a training to know how to operate and hold space.
Yeah,
like, how'd you get involved in facilitating?
Yeah, so facilitating was kind of a journey for me, because in the beginning I was giving a very light training, I would say, considering what people go through. I'm
no pun intended.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, totally. I didn't even think that. But yeah, it was a really basic beginning, and then I came to see a lot of things about myself. Like I realized a lot of things about myself. Like I had this thing that I thought more intense was better. And I didn't even realize that was like in me until I started giving sessions and realizing like some people don't need like that crazy amount of intensity. Like sometimes you just need to be held. Like you just need a really gentle, warm, welcoming space to like be and like a break from all the intensity, So it was really, I think the first year that I was working with Lucia, I learned a lot. And, I've been supported by different mentors and had amazing conversations with all kinds of people through different ways of holding space, like shamanically or through different traditions. And Zach and I are really interested in taking a, breathwork training course and all of that, because we want to go to the next level with that. But, now we offer trainings ourselves based on the, years of knowledge that we have of working with people and seeing the huge variety of reactions and kind of experiences that people have, and practicing giving, holding space. But it is very similar to, what we're talking about, like holding space for psychedelic experiences in a lot of ways. So,
Cool. Yeah. There's a lot of, it seems like just some of this conversation is making me think there's a lot of similarities between this work and some of the breath work that we do. One part is about doing it yourself. There's folks like, oh, can I just like learn breath work and do it by myself? You could, but I don't know how safe that would be. Like we really encourage people to do it in a group process, because that's one of the key components of breath work is the tribe, the people, the group holding that space for you. And also the facilitators, like, I'm trained in breath work, but I don't really do it by myself, because you can get into some pretty hairy kind of situations where, if you're doing some double bookkeeping and you're reprocessing some trauma, that could be really scary by yourself and not having somebody there. So the group process thing and, facilitation, definitely in that similarity. And also you're describing with the intensity, there's a lot of theory behind the breath work that we give about transpersonal experiences, maybe reliving past traumas, perinatal and birth processes. And when we describe that, people want to have those experiences. And then when people start doing breath work, if for their first time, like nothing happened, quote unquote, they're like, oh, well, my hands got tingly. Nothing really happened. And it's like, well, something did happen there. And maybe that's just what you needed. Maybe you didn't need to process a really deep cathartic experience. Sometimes it is just being in there and feeling that relaxation and just kind of sitting in the moment.
Yeah, and becoming aware of yourself. And exactly, like a lot of people, there was a meme on the internet for a while that had a picture of the Lucia light and it said DMT without DMT. And, it was this whole thing. We got like hundreds of people reaching out, curious, and like a lot of people setting up events with us. And then they tell all their friends it's the same thing as DMT. It's just like a light, and it's like, well, is it, and if we look deeper into that, like, what does that mean? Same thing with breath work. You can release DMT naturally, right? And even people who try ayahuasca, it's like sometimes they'll have a really gentle ayahuasca experience where she's just holding you, like you're just in that energy, and it's not like, you know, some people don't throw up. Like everyone has a totally different experience. And that's the thing with the light too. It's like, if you have these crazy expectations about like what's going to happen, like chances are it's just going to be relaxing, because what you need to let go of is your expectations in life.
Right.
You know, it's like, until you let go of those, like you're not going to get anywhere, because it's like the mind is so tricky. And if we're like listening to what the mind thinks we should be doing, or the way the mind is analyzing everything, then it really constricts what's possible in our reality. And like, if we want to heal those deeper things, or like have those deeper experiences, it's not going to be coming from the mind. And I think that's, you know, a really key component to all of these kind of this work, is really like getting out of the mind and into the body and like feeling it through there, and into the heart, which like sees things on a whole different level, you know, and really following that and trusting that. And that's the scariest thing, is like trusting what your heart says. You're like, whoa.
Yeah, definitely. Doing heart work is really intense. Yeah. But that's funny. That meme definitely circled around psychedelic science, because when I was walking around, like some folks were like, you got to check out this light. Like it's like DMT, like the bright flashing lights and these geometric shapes. And so, you know, that's what I was thinking the whole time. Like I was coming across this, like, this is really interesting. Like a light producing maybe like DMT in the mind and producing these experiences. But yeah, it's a funny meme.
Yeah, well, and it's true. I mean, like there is a study being done right now as we speak in Spain, where they are testing to see, you know, your pineal glands at the center of your brain. It's little pine cone shaped, you know, gland that does, you know, helps regulate melatonin, but all sorts of other processes as well. And they believe that it does release DMT. And the tricky thing is we haven't been able to prove that yet.
Right.
So, you know, we think it's kind of funny, because it's like, again, humans and our like our fixation with form. We're always looking for form. We're like, oh, it must be the pineal gland, and you know, like all of this, where it's like, well, it's this huge release, huge experience, and hopefully they can prove that, but it, you know, it disappears in your bloodstream within minutes. And it's such, you know, it's a very slippery kind of thing on the physical level. So
this is different research than what Rick Strassman's doing.
Yeah, so that's more, you know, he's trying to see if it does come from the pineal gland, you know, and a lot of people are like, oh, he proved that. And it's like, no, he theorized that, you know.
Thanks for pointing that out, because I think that's a lot of misconception that people describing DMT, they're saying it's produced in the pineal gland, but you know, he's kind of retracted and said that was a hypothesis, and actually a large percentage of DMT is actually found in the human lung. And so we don't really know if it's produced in the pineal gland. It's a hypothesis, but you know, it's all in the body.
Oh, totally. And it's kind of our fixation on like, oh, it's this substance that the body's producing. It's like, okay, you're having like a crazy like spiritual experience that's so deep and so beautiful, and you're still trying to like reduce it down, you know. It's like to the physical, and like trying to understand exactly how it works through the mind. And it's like, I feel like if I've learned anything, it's like our mind is just not capable in a lot of ways of understanding what's going on. I mean, if you start thinking about quantum physics and like all of these alternate realities and all these possibilities for things, your mind gets overwhelmed. Your mind is like, whoa, back up, like I'm out of here, I can't really think that way. Like I want to keep it simple, I want to like have a really, you know, concrete understanding of this so that I can feel safe. And a lot of this, we're not feeling safe. I mean, what happens in a DMT experience is like you're going through different dimensions, you know, and seeing all these things. Like, how can you bring that back to the physical? It's like, okay, it must be this like DMT thing. It's like, can we just like let go of like what, you know, how that happens on the physical, and like look at how crazy and amazing it is that we're able to go through all of these things and have these experiences, and just know that it's something we might not be able to explain ever, and that's okay, you know. And I think it's the same thing with light. People have all kinds of experiences, everything from very physical experiences, like, oh, I had a trauma in my knee and I felt this tingling in my knee, and it's like, wow, our body is, you know, made up of light. You know, there's research being done now that's showing like on the biological level that we communicate through the living matrix of light, and that's like biophotonics. You know, they're able to change what cells' expressions are through blinking of lights. So
Interesting.
there's all kinds of stuff happening, like even on the cellular level. Then if you take it up to like the energetic level, you know, it's like, wow, how different do you feel if you just walk out in the sun on a sunny day and like feel that on your body versus like going inside and sitting like in front of your computer, or like going into a horrible, like, you know, lighting, you know, it's just like, oh God, like everyone knows that feeling. You're just like, oh, body is like really resisting that. So light is, you know, affecting us on so many different levels. And if you want, you can reduce it to like, oh, DMT. But I think it's really, you know, more than that in a lot of ways. And also, you know, just nothing in life can be really reduced that easily. It's just something that the mind's always looking for to feel safe and feel like, oh, now I know.
Right.
Like, I'm comfortable now.
Yeah, we need to, as humans, it's like we need to know two things. Do you know off the top of the hand what that research is over in Spain? Like if people are interested, like who's conducting that research, or if it's in a university, just where to look in case people want to look that up?
Yeah, it's a neurological institute. I'll have to look up the address. Maybe I can give it to you.
Yeah,
and
we
then
put it
you
in
can,
the show notes.
Yeah, show it up online. I don't know if they've published anything about it yet, but there have been some studies done with the Lucia about reliably going into an altered state of consciousness. And then they're coming out with a study for the breaking convention this year. Do you know about the Great Breaking Convention?
Yeah. One of our teachers, Lenny Gibson, is actually going to be over there.
Oh, cool.
He's on a philosophical panel with somebody that we interviewed, Peter Scherstedt H. Sorry if I mispronounced that, but I believe that's how it's pronounced. We just had him on talking about psychedelics and philosophy. So yeah, it looks like a really awesome conference. I wish I could go. That's coming up in end of June, I believe.
Yeah. We're going to be at Boom Festival in Portugal at the same time. So, cool. Or sorry, not Boom, it's Being every other year, more focused on the healing side of things. But yeah, so that there's some research coming out there, which I'm not allowed to disclose what it is, but keep your ears peeled for that. And well, you can give you that website anyway. And for the Breaking Convention, all kinds of talks. And then there's also been research done specifically around creativity and how design students have benefited massively from experiencing the Lucia and applying that to their work. Like a lot of people described how they just went to a whole different place with their design that they hadn't even thought about. So, you know.
So this is cool. There's actually research behind this product, the light. It's not just some thing somebody made up and kind of in the new agey realm. Like there are people researching the effects of it. And
yeah, totally. And I mean, again, it's like the doctors, it's invented by doctors, neurologists and psychiatrists. So, you know, they have a rich history in the allopathic medicine side, but are also very interested in, you know, energy and like what happens beyond that. And they say like a lot of the, you know, they could do specific research on the ways, like some of the ways it works, but they almost don't want to on a lot of ways because then again, it's limiting what could happen to you. Because then that's definitely what I found is that every person has a totally different experience. And, you know, some people are like, wow, like, yeah, I'm just one of those people who's going 24/7 and I feel so relaxed afterwards. Like I feel just like centered and grounded and like I don't need to like run around. And then other people are like, yeah, I've had zero energy and then I did the light and I'm just like so aware and awake and like alive and excited. So it's like, okay, what are we trying to prove here with theory? Like that it wakes you up or it you know, so you can't really, every person is so individual. And that's something, you know, with this kind of, I would say more modern medicine, which is combining a lot of the ancient medicine with current scientific theory and understanding. Modern medicine is that basically now, like, you know, it's not about, you know, taking something to have a specific reaction, but more about balancing what's going on for you and like coming back to a center point. And that's what the light really seems to be doing more than anything, you know? And so if, you need to go connect with someone who passed away or like, or if you just need to really relax and like, or if you just need to be wowed by like the beauty that's there that you kind of forgot about, you know, and take a break, you know, like meditation style from thinking. You know, it's like all of those things. It's everything. It's like, and everyone is different. And every time you do it is different. So you might just be really relaxed the first time and the next time go through all kinds of portals and have crazy, you know, other experiences. So it's just, every time's different. Yeah.
Yeah. I definitely had wide range of experience. And at the end, I felt really energized. But before I jump, I definitely want to process a little bit about my experience. But the one other thing that came up when you were talking about like cell memory or in the cellular level, have you ever read Jeremy Narby's The Cosmic Serpent?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he talks about how like his whole theory on DNA, and then gets down to like the photons flashing, and that might be like the actual like ayahuasca experience of like the light shining from the DNA. And I don't know, it just popped in my head when you were talking about that.
Yeah, definitely. It's so funny. That's like exactly what I underlined and everything in the book. I'm like, this is the light. This is what the light machine's doing, and it is really interesting, how that comes together. Like, I would definitely recommend reading that book if anyone wants to check it out. But yeah, and that's what it is, like biophotonics. And now this guy like proved like this living matrix. I'll give you his information as well, that, and he's just like a biologist, and he wasn't really thinking to discover this at all. But he said, how can we process things? It has to be faster than like we touch something and then they say like, oh, it's just a reflex. So you pull your hand away. But he's like, no, it's a communication through all of your cells. That doesn't have to go to your brain every time, but it's like this other communication that's faster, it's through light instead of like an energy impulse. So it's really interesting research. And I mean, a lot of, the ancient Vedic understanding is that we're beings of light,
right?
And now we're kind of proving that on all these levels and bringing back, the old and the new to be like, yes, we are. And there's actually one other study that I think you might find interesting. They haven't done it with humans yet, but with mice, there's this really amazing Radiolab podcast about it, actually. But,
oh, cool.
Basically, it's about Alzheimer's disease and how people, or with mice with Alzheimer's disease who are given 40 hertz of flickering light for an hour a day, started recalling their memory.
Wow.
And all of these things started coming back to them and started reversing like early Alzheimer's and stuff. So it's actually in human trials right now. But, that's a certain frequency of light, whereas Lucia uses, a variety. There's about 150 different programs. So you can do all different kinds of things, but that's just kind of touching on the iceberg of like how light can affect us in ways that we don't even think about.
That's so cool that there's research going on about this.
Yeah.
We'll definitely have to put that in the show notes and check out.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
It's called the Radiolab Bringing Gamma Back.
Oh, cool. Nice.
Yeah, that's the gamma frequency of it.
So is there any, I'd say maybe like clinical application of this?
So we're definitely staying away from making it a medical device for a number of reasons. I mean, basically with a medical device, you need protocols.
Yep.
And protocols say that, oh, okay, you are depressed, so you need exactly this much light over these many days and this many sessions. And again, while that kind of satisfies the left brain worry, like, oh, okay, now I know what I need. It's not really what you need. Right, it's like everyone is totally different. Like maybe you just need one session. Maybe you need 10 sessions. Like maybe you want to really do this for 3 months at once a week and see like how you shift every time. Like every person is different. So again, it's like if it becomes any kind of medical situation, then it's really limiting the application and changing the way that we would be working with it. So no.
Cool. Right.
Yeah.
How do you promote it? Is it just kind of like self-discovery or?
Yeah, it's pretty much self-discovery. It's word of mouth. People have like, at MAPS, it was like wildfire. It was like, okay, the first couple hours was pretty quiet. And then everyone who tried it told their friends and they told their friends. And then suddenly we were busy for, 8 a.m. to 1 a.m. in the morning, like the whole time, super busy. So it really perpetuates itself in like really beautiful ways. And like I said, we don't advertise or anything. So, if we're in a town, maybe we'll make like a Facebook post and promote it for like $10 and be like, maybe that'll catch someone, one person or whatever. But it's really about people sharing it with other people because they have an incredible experience, and it's about the experience for us. We're not trying to sell anything. It's like we're holding space for the people who are interested interested in coming to experience. And that's kind of how it goes. Yeah.
Was there any cool feedback from Psych Science that you got from some of the people that participated in it?
Oh yeah. People had a wide range of experience. That was such a cool event because there was all kinds of doctors and, you know, people who were really on the medical side who were just starting to open their eyes. Like there was some like trial judge who had just done LSD for the first time like a week ago. Oh, wow. And then he like tried the light and was like, what? Like my mind is just so blown about like what is going on in the world right now. Like, you know, everyone's so focused on like the dark side of things, but like really like there's amazing stuff going on. He was just like so excited. So, you know, there's a lot of really positive, you know, reactions, reflections from the my one friend who's a psychiatrist, he told me he did it and he was blown away by it. He was like, it was amazing, you know. So it's cool to reach that audience of professionals and show them some sort of alternative, whether they could use it in their practice, but we're not medicalizing it, but just knowing that this stuff is out there. And and there are some therapists who use it, you know, because basically it takes you to a really deep state and it's totally legal and everything like that. I mean, it's a little more complicated if you're trying to write it off for insurance or something like that.
Can't do that.
So and I mean, again, it's kind of in still early stages really as far as popularity and things like that, and it's a very specific group of people who are interested in it. But we have found more and more recently that we're reaching out to different groups to offer the experience, so they're not necessarily like spiritual seekers or like crazy psychonauts. We're trying to just get to like regular people and they have amazing experience. Like we've done it at like really like spas, you know, cool. that are like, you know, like do your nails and like your hair and you look so nice, you know, and then they're like, and try this light thing, it's very relaxing, and like, and these old ladies just like, oh, that was beautiful. It's just like so beautiful. I've never seen colors like that in my life before, you know, and like clearly they've never had a psychedelic experience. If we had said it was psychedelic, they would have been like,
no way, I'm
not doing that, you know. But it's like so cool because we can just come in like with a light and just like, you know.
So do you ever pitch it as like relaxation, like maybe stress reduction or anything like that?
Deep nervous system relaxation and, you know, centering and grounding and and some people are like all about that, you know, and it's
cool. And what about like contradictions, any side effects? I know like when I was at Psy Science, I heard somebody had maybe like an adverse reaction, but we were just talking and maybe it wasn't what people were actually saying, but it might have been more of a cathartic experience.
Totally.
So are there any side effects or any negative?
So it is flickering light. So with any type of flashing light, and this could happen at a concert or all kinds of things, there are certain individuals who would be predisposed to having a seizure. That means you have light sensitive epilepsy. So if you break that down, it means you're so sensitive to light that a seizure is basically like a brain overwhelm. So even flickering light to their system is just so extreme that it causes this kind of overload, you know. And it can be, there's even within people who have epilepsy, it's a very small percentage who are actually triggered by light. So that's one part. And then another part is most of those people are really pretty aware that they feel really uncomfortable around flashing lights and they're not going to come try a light experience, you know, things like that. But I think, like, for example, what did happen at the psychedelic conference is someone had a really, like, deep emotional experience seeing a loved one who had passed away, like, days before showed up in the light, and it was overwhelming because he hadn't been able to process it at all. And you know, by crying or releasing or feeling it, just kind of been like in shock basically for days, and then had been like, oh, here I am, you know, like I gotta like be on my A game. And you know, and it was a personal experience for him, so I won't go any further, but basically it was an overwhelm, and felt really amazing afterwards, and really like opened up like a whole thing, and actually, you know, helped a lot. And it was a very like helpful like process for him. So, and he came back and really thanked us, you know, and we're like, okay, you know, some people are like, what? There's like a seizure over there. Oh my God, run away. And it's like, no, I think we have to like rethink how we think about a lot of these things. Like, you know, the Prophet Muhammad had seizures like all the time, and that's where you get his like downloads. And it's like, if we, and I don't know if you know about Dr. Joe Dispenza's work.
I don't think so.
So he's really incredible. He works with like like a lot of quantum meditations, I guess I would say. But he, like, people in his events like go through crazy experiences where they have these crazy gamma spikes. So they have EEGs on their heads during it, have these crazy gamma spikes, so like really high cognition that can't even be measured on our current, things. And they're just like going through all kinds of convulsions or whatever experiences. And it's not a seizure. It's a full next level experience. And a lot of people will heal crazy stuff. Like they have like Parkinson's disease and they can't walk. And then they realize it's all this emotional like block and all of these things. And they like clear it. And they walk out of there like a different person. And it happens all the time. He does these events all over. It's like a 3-day immersion. Super powerful. And he's all about the science. He's a doctor. He talks about all of the science behind it and makes you feel really comfortable in the left brain, so that when it comes to the, he does a third eye breath and like all these things. When it comes to that, you can really let go and go to the next level. So it is just kind of interesting how we think of what's an adverse reaction, or like what that means and everything. And it's like kind of in life, my opinion is, it's like, well, if something happens on the physical that's traumatic, then it's like a chance to like really look within and, deal with some other things.
Right. Yeah. And to even do that in the marketplace, I mean, the marketplace was probably busy, so people might've been walking by and they saw this person have a cathartic experience. I mean, I'm sure if anybody came to breathwork not knowing anything about it and watching people have cathartic experiences, I might think that's weird. I remember I was taking a Chinese medicine class, and my teacher's a 5-element acupuncturist, and they had a student lying on the table in the middle of class, and they had a rebirthing experience just from acupuncture. And it, from like being a student observing it, it looked like they seized out. Their body got really tense. They started shaking, convulsing, and every muscle was tight. But from their end, it was just a catharsis. It was just a release of a physical and emotional energy.
Totally. And that's what's so interesting about, how we perceive so much. And it's like kind of scary from the outside if you can't like meet someone's eyes or something.
Right.
But it doesn't mean that they're, really suffering or anything like that. I think it's like scarier for other people than the people that are actually going through the process. So yeah, it's interesting. And I mean, as far as, I think that's the only type of thing that can be like, obviously the most intense experience that you could have them light. Other than that, it's really positive for everyone. We do say like 18 up because that's when your brain is more developed. And I think that, children don't need the light really. Like I was talking to Grant about this, like, just go outside and like hug a tree, like be with nature, like, or do like a sound healing where you can really hear that sound. But same thing, like they don't really need breath work. Like maybe, in teenage years when you're dealing with some other stuff, it could be good. But I think below that, it's like we're incredible creatures, and children are so resilient and all of that. But other than that, there's no contraindications. It's been a really powerful experience for all types of people and all types of conditions. And for people who are like nervous about psychedelic experiences or have had bad psychedelic experiences, to people who also just want to explore new psychedelic experiences, it's like all good. So yeah, it was a really interesting experience, and I was a little nervous because of like some of the buzz around psych science and what I was hearing, and also I am pretty sensitive to light. Like I just was watching a movie a couple weeks ago at the movie theater, and they had a scene, there was a lot of flashing light, and like I had to close my eyes for a second because I was like, oh my god, I feel like I'm gonna seize out. So I was like a little nervous about doing this because I'm like a little light sensitive, but I had a really awesome experience with it, and it felt very heart opening. I felt like this sensation around my heart just opening, lifting. The visual experience was really interesting. There were times when it was just solid white light in my vision, and I couldn't tell what was making the shift. So for example, there was a time when it was just really bright white light, and then I don't know if it was because I was also like using my breath to navigate the space, or if it was the actual light changing in intensity, but it shot me back, and it was like this oh man, it was like
aqua blue color, very intense. And it felt like the sky just like kind of coming down on me. And then all of a sudden I saw this, all these geometric shapes, and it felt like I was being blasted into another dimension. And I remember just kind of going, and I just shot back in the bed that I was laying in, and it was really cool. Like the experience kept shifting based on like how I was breathing, how I was taking that emotion in, how I was processing it. There was like some time when it felt a little intense where, you know, I was telling you earlier that it was shifting between like 3 colors at one point. It was like red, orange, and blue, and it's like milliseconds, like red, orange, blue, red, orange, blue. I was like, oh man, this is really intense. But I was trying to remember what you said of just letting go and letting the experience take over. And as soon as I let go, it just like slowed down and turned into like a really beautiful experience. But a lot of oceanic feeling. And it felt really blissful. I didn't really feel afraid at all. It was really calming at some points. And then I had a lot of energy at the end. Like I wanted to get up and like run, you know. I was like, oh man, I feel awesome, like this is so great. But I'd say like the overall thing, it was like really heart opening, really calming, but also really like activating as well.
Awesome. Yeah, totally. Yeah. And everyone, again, has a different experience. So it's always amazing to, you know, hear what people do experience. But yeah, I think something that's really special about the Lucia light is that kind of heart opening feeling. That's what a lot of people talk about. They feel like they're really held in the experience. You know, it starts with that really warm glow, which holds you there. And then, you know, anything beyond that. But it is interesting that you saw a white light, because most people describe never seeing any white light, even though it's white light. It's more like colors and patterns and stuff like that. Yeah. You know, and that's more, I mean, how we interpret that, that's more like, you know, crown chakra energy, or like really like connecting purely with, you know, the source, where you're not even needing to see it through any filter. So that's cool.
And it's really interesting that you mentioned the creator of this had a near-death experience and wanted to share it. When I was 16, and you know, some of the listeners that have probably already heard me talk about this a million times, but I had like a near-death experience when I was 16, and I did feel a lot of that during that experience, and that blissful kind of death experience of like just falling into the light, that comfort of like, wow, this is all love. I mean, that's how I felt when I was dying. It was like this light of just pure bliss and joy, just telling me that I was going to transition. And like, that's kind of how I felt up there, just like basking in the radiant light and just taking it all in. And it was so comforting.
Awesome. Yeah. It's so funny because it's such a contradiction, right? It's like, yeah, I felt like I was dying, you know, like a lot of people are like, what? You know, like that's so scary and triggering to think like death, you know, but it's actually like a release, and it's like a place beyond, you know, what you experience here. And whether it's like really like going towards death or just going beyond this realm, which is like a pretty like dense reality full of like a lot of like pain and like struggling and all of that we all experience, you know. And it's like letting all of that go and really being in a place where it's like beyond the ego, beyond, you know, the struggle, the, you know, the need to try to be who, you know, you're trying to be, and like all that. And it's like you can just let that all melt away, which
is really hard to do. And you know, when I was in the ER, there's immediate fear of like, I'm gonna die. You know, I'm hearing like the doctors and nurses telling me my veins are collapsing in my body, I don't have any blood. And then to the point where like I was so blissed out, and I just heard this voice saying, just relax into it. And that's when like all the fear melted away. And learning to surrender into that process is very difficult. I mean, I still have a tough time surrendering to the process, but that experience also taught me that surrendering also it's very helpful, you know. It's definitely. Like the more you fight, the scarier it gets, the more anxiety it produces. If you can just kind of let go and into whatever experience you are experiencing, it can transform and transmute into something else.
Exactly. And that's kind of what we say with the light too, is that after a series of experiences, you start changing because it's rewriting your neural pathways. So like when you experience stress, which the light is really intense. So like it's a bright light, you know, so like it's an intense experience just on that level. It's not like, oh my God, it's scary, but it's like, wow, this is intense. Like you can actually feel like your heart like picking up in the very beginning, because it's like, whoa, this is different, and your mind's kind of like, what's going to happen? I don't know what's going to happen.
Right.
And then, but as you let go into it, and the entrainment from the light helps as well to really relax your body. It helps you practice letting go and relaxing into intense experiences. And, it's funny, we've had different people, in different ways. And one woman was like, well, the experience itself wasn't like anything. I didn't think it was that special. It was like very, colorful, but I've done acid. It wasn't like, wow, I was like, she was so funny, but how she described it. And then I'm like, okay, and then she's like, but the next day, she like called me to tell me, she's like, it was crazy. She's like, usually I get really overwhelmed. And like, it was just one of those days. You could just tell like the way it was starting, like everything was going wrong, like, and you were just kind of, she was like, and I just realized I wasn't like reacting and making it worse. I was just kind of like, okay, this is where we're at. And I kind of found it amusing, and I was able to just find distance with it. And then actually things got way better, where she's like, it's been a kind of pattern for me. If it starts wrong, like things start wrong in the morning, then they just get worse and worse and worse and worse. Right. And she's like, so I had to realize like, and own the fact that I'm the one who makes it worse and worse and worse and worse. It's like, we can have intense experiences and like bad experiences, traumatic experiences, but it's like how we respond to it, which means how fast we're going to get over it. It's like if you're still holding on to that grudge from that one time the person looked at you weird, it's like, was that your perception of them looking at you weird to begin with? And even if they were looking at you weird, maybe they were thinking about something else, or right, so it's just like we take things so personally and then hold on to them, and it's like, why? Like that's only hurting you, like that person's totally over it. So like just kind of that practice of like letting things flow through you, letting the intensity go through you, and then staying in a much better place. This
is really awesome, and I really appreciate you sharing the light with me. I had a really great time, and I feel like this session's probably going to wrap up soon upstairs with the other folks, and I feel like it's probably going to get a little noisy down here for recording. So where can people find you? So our website is lucialightexperience.com, and if you look, you can see like try the Lucia, and then there's a whole list of locations around the US, and you can fill out a contact form if you want to invite us out as well. We do travel around all over the place. Our next places that we're going to are New Orleans, and then Europe actually for a little bit, and then back to California. But so lucialightexperience.com is our website, and then I'll give you some other links and stuff as well. Awesome.
Folks want to learn more.
Well, thanks so much for talking. It's
for sure
been awesome. The dog is happy too.
He's like, woohoo! All right, got my attention.
Right. Until next time, thanks so much.
Take care. Thank you.